So we have seen the inner view of a processor along with the random access memory, I mean the primary memory in a system through this diagram, and we have categorized the memory in two different ways. Now, if we uh, if we want to make a clear view about the communication between the processor with all the different types of memory location, how it will look like, let's try to realize it first. So just a minute. So if we consider that at the left side, if we consider the processing part, so this is representing the CPU, and within this part there is something else other than the CPU. So if I consider we have the CPU over here, we have a very important thing present in this CPU, that is register. Just the thing that we have seen, this one, this B, C, D, E, H, L, these all are registers. So, and these are general purpose registers. What I mean that these registers are used to store the data, some value. I mean, if you want to write, if when you are writing a program, ultimately when the program is executed, that's converted to some instructions, and those instructions can be stored in this register for time being. Now, what other than the CPU, what we know that at the end, if we consider the memory side, we have what we call disk, and specifically you can say it's uh, secondary memory, right? So the what we can see, it is hard disk drive, right? Or maybe secondary memory, whatever you can say. Now, what do we know that this CPU is very fast, but this secondary memory is very slow. That's why to if the CPU want to communicate with this particular secondary memory, since it is too slow, that's why if you want to make a system or a programming execution faster, it's not possible to directly communicate directly with this hard disk drive. That's why we have a presence of what we call RAM or primary memory, right? So RAM is basically this logical division I have done, but memory is nothing but something like an array, right? So this is my RAM. So this RAM can communicate with this hard disk if required. Now again, in a similar way, if we want to make the computer system more faster, naturally the speed of the CPU will be limited by the speed of RAM, because ultimately data is stored in RAM, and I mean data means maybe instruction also, and whenever CPU requires some data or instruction, it has to access the RAM, which is obviously slower than CPU. So although CPU is very fast, still its speed is limited on the basis of speed of RAM, and that is why these registers were present. But problem is that these registers are very costly, since these are very costly, that's why it is not possible to keep a large amount of registers within a processing unit, and that is why the register amount is very few. So to make a trade-off between this number of registers and the RAM, that is number of register is very few but it is very fast, and RAM has much more location than register, but it is much slower than register. Now to make a trade-off between these two, another memory came in between this, and that is actually why what we call cache memory. Cache memory is also like a RAM, but difference is that cache memory is called, actually it's a static memory, whether RAM is basically a dynamic memory. That's why cache is also called static RAM. So that's why this cache is very fast compared to RAM. So naturally I can make it much more faster. The computer system can be much more faster. Now you can keep any number of cache in your system. For example, I have only one cache in this particular situation I am saying, but this cache can be of in different level also. I mean, there can be a cache within the processing unit also, and in that case the level will be, the hierarchy is defined. So that means what happened actually, the CPU when process on some data or instruction, it first checked on the registers. If it is not present over here, it requests to the cache memory. If the data is present in the cache memory, then data, transferred to the CPU and CPU work with it. But if it is not present in the cache memory, then it requests to RAM. If the data is present in the RAM, then the data first comes from RAM to cache, then cache to CPU. And if again the data is not present in RAM also, then obviously data has to be requested from the secondary memory like hard disk drive, and then data comes in the according order. So this is a basic hierarchy of the memory that is connected with a processing unit of any computer system. Now here a very interesting point comes, that is, as I told you that CPU search the data first in cache. If we ignore this register part for some time, I can at least say that CPU will search the data in the cache first, and if the data is present, CPU work with it, and if it is not present, it search in the RAM. That means from this context, two terminology came. One is called cache hit. So cache hit means data is present in the cache memory, and cache miss mean, there is one more thing, sorry, cache miss, it means data is not present in the cache memory. So if it is not present in the cache memory, what will happen? Obviously data will be searched in the RAM. Now naturally question will come that if there is an n number of instructions, obviously all the instructions may not present in the cache memory at a time, so there will be some cache hit and there will be some cache miss. Now the ratio of this cache hit is actually what we call hit ratio. Okay, so hit ratio is the ratio of the percentage of cache hit. That means this is percentage of cache hit. Now there is one more interesting problem come in this scenario, that is, if we consider that we have a situation where heat ratio is say 0.8%, suppose that the heat ratio is, let's take an example, that heat ratio is 0.8. What does it mean? It means that it is actually 80%. That means when a CPU is searching data in cache, 80% time it finds the data and 20% time it cannot find, so the data has to find in the main memory. Now if I assume for time being that whatever is not found in cache is definitely present in RAM, then question will come that what is the total amount of time that is required to complete the job with this heat ratio 0.8, and that is what we call effective memory access time. That is equal to H into H plus M into 1 minus H. Now what is this capital H and capital M? This capital H is time to access memory for heat, and this is M is time to access memory for miss, for a miss. So now what is this? Remember, this time to access a heat means data is present in the cache memory. So if I assume for time being that time to access a cache memory is say 10 nanosecond, so cache memory access time, suppose 10 nanosecond, and similarly RAM access time is 20 nanosecond. So when there is a heat, that means data is present in the cache. What it mean? It means that the CPU is actually able to find the data in this cache memory. That's why it has got the data. So the time to search the data in the cache memory at that point of time is 10 nanosecond, because cache memory access time is 10 nanosecond. But when there is a miss, that means that CPU has searched the data in the cache. Anyhow, the data was not present in any block in the cache. That is why the CPU has searched the RAM. That means if there is a miss, then the time to search in a cache memory is wasted. But ultimately, if we consider the effective memory access time, we have to consider that time also. That means this M includes the time to access cache memory plus time to access RAM, both. And accordingly, we can easily find the answer. What is this H represents? This is my heat ratio. So if you are able to remember this particular uh, equation, you know, it's very easy to find the effective memory access time for a system having some particular heat ratio and some particular time for cache memory access and RAM access.